RV park just across the West Virginia-Kentucky line on I-64. Most of the spots are pretty spacious and long. We are about 68 feet long total with the fifth wheel. So I've got the truck and the coach. We just backed in, unhooked, pulled forward, and just a ton of room. Good morning. It is travel day. We are headed west for our next adventure. Well, as you can see, we've gone all over the country in the last 4 years with our big rig.
We have.
And we've had a number of you comment or ask questions about, isn't it hard to find places to stay while you're traveling with such a big, enormous rig?
And the answer is?
It takes a little research.
Yeah, it does. Especially if we've never been there before.
Yeah, so we thought we'd throw this together and kind of let you guys know how we go about planning our trips. We are big. You know, there's no two questions about it. We are large, and we knew that going in.
Yeah.
With our old rig, that was about 40 foot long, and our new one is about 45 feet long. And total length with the truck and the new rig, we're about 73 foot total length. So planning our trip is a little different than, say, you might have a small Class C or a Class B van, or, you know, even a smaller Class A, and you can get into just about any park that you want to. Yeah. It takes a little bit more research for us to figure out where we want to stay and how we want to get there. So when we start our trip planning, we understand, and we understood this from the start, we knew we weren't going to be able to stay in national parks inside the park or a lot of state parks. We knew that from the get-go. That's why we purchased our smart car. That's our get-around vehicle, that's our commute vehicle, and we use that to see the sights that we want to see. This is kind of a hard video to make because everybody has their own style. We like to boondock a lot, and we prefer not to have to stay at a park if we don't have to. If we're going long distance, say for if we've got a trip across the country like we've got coming up this fall, we don't necessarily want to have to pay $40, $50, $60 for one night just to stay 8 hours, get some sleep, and move on the next morning. And we like to boondock a lot, and so we look for boondock places. We also, even though we're going to stay at a place for a couple of weeks at a time, we don't necessarily look for park amenities. We don't look for, as an example, for a pool. We don't look for a playground. We don't look for a clubhouse. We're just looking for a comfortable, large enough for us place to stay the night or a couple of weeks. And then we'll use that spot to go to our different places. As an example, when we went to Washington, D.C., we actually stayed at Front Royal, Virginia. And we commuted every day into D.C. There were a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the closest RV parks to Washington, D.C. were just ridiculously expensive. I didn't want to spend 120 nights or $120 a night to spend 10 nights and get close to DC. So we could use the smart car to commute into the metro. We could jump on the metro and then use that as our means of transportation around Washington, D.C. we're also not real big planners. I know a lot of you like reservations, and I get that. I really do. We found our travel style is more of a fly by the seat of our pants.
Right. Well, and we'll do reservations if we're going to go like to the rallies that we're going to this year.
Right.
We need a spot.
Yeah.
So we will make reservations for those. But other than that, we just drive, and I'll get on the phone and I'll call different RV parks and see if they can fit us.
Yeah, and a lot of times what we'll do is if we get to a location and it's not anything like we thought it was going to, or the weather's just going to be terrible, or the park is not really what we enjoy, we would just as soon be able to leave early and move on if we could.
Right.
On the other hand, if we find a place that's absolutely beautiful and there's so much more to see than we even considered, or we find friends that are going to stay a little bit longer, then we like to stay a little bit longer. And if we've got reservations 2, 3, 4 months in, down the road, we're not able to do that.
No.
Without taking a hit financially,
Right.
on canceling reservations or changing them or whatever. So we really don't necessarily like to make reservations as we travel. I know a lot of you do, and I get that. And if you're doing,
that's okay.
Yeah, and if you're doing Florida in the summer, you've got to make reservations because it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find a spot. Now, we've already made reservations going to Hershey, Pennsylvania. We've got our reservations in place. We know how long we're going to stay at Hershey. It's basically for the RV show, and then we've got reservations after that because we have appointments that we've got to meet, and so consequently we've got to make those reservations. But
Right.
for the most part, we're kind of fly by the seat of our pants.
Right.
RVers.
Right.
The other thing that we like to do quite often is we like to boondock with family and friends. We're boondocking right now with friends in Washington State. They've got a beautiful ranch that we can stay at. They've got 50 amp hookup for us. They've got water available for us. And we've mooch docked at our daughter's house in a residential neighborhood. Yeah, we're big. And yeah, the neighbors come out and they all want to see what we've got. But that gives us an opportunity to sit and have coffee in the morning or enjoy a leisurely dinner and not have to worry about getting back and forth between the places. So, how do we plan our trips? Well, I'm going to use an example of our next trip coming up, our next big trip coming up. We're going to leave Washington State and we're going to go back to Hershey, Pennsylvania for the RV show. We're planning, because we want to spend so much more time here with our family and friends, we want to delay our trip as long as possible. And so what we're calculating out is we're going to try to calculate from Spokane to Hershey in 6 days, maybe 7. We'll see how it goes.
We get in that truck and we just don't want to stop sometimes.
Yeah. So we like to use our favorite app in looking for places to stay and trip planning is RV Parky. So we use RV Parky on our computer, and there's also a phone app which we'll talk about later, but when you log into RV Parky, you have the opportunity to bring up a new trip. They ask you to name your trip. For this example, we're just going to name it Fall 2021. And then it asks you for a trip start date. So you can either manually input the date or you can select it from the calendar that they offer you. In this example, we're just going to pick, I don't know, let's pick September let's try September the 6th. Then it asks you where you're going to start your trip. In this example, we're going to use Spokane, Washington, and you select go. And then you can share it as well, but you click OK and it starts your location. Here's our new trip. So from here, we know where we want to stay along the route. So we're going to stop at our place in Superior, Montana as our first stop. And then we're going to add another stop along the route. And we like to stay under, under 350 miles. So we're going to say Billings, Montana. We know of a good boondock spot there in Billings. So we're going to go to Billings. And then we pretty much know that we want to stop in Rapid City, South Dakota, and take a look at our mail. So we'll find a place there to stay. Sioux City, Iowa, not Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Iowa. We've stayed there before, so we're going to say Sioux City, Iowa is our next stop. As you can see, it builds a route on your map as you go along. And then just for this example, I'm going to enter our destination. And our destination for this trip is going to be Hershey, Pennsylvania. And it will show that whole route from Sioux City, Iowa, all the way to Hershey. Now, obviously, that's going to be too far for us to go in one day. If you can look, it shows it's going to be 17 hours and 41 minutes. So we're going to add a stop in between Sioux City, Iowa and Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I've already done the research, so I'm going to say Peoria, Illinois looks like a good place for our 5th night. And then again, that still says 11 hours and 42 minutes to go from Peoria to Hershey. So I've already researched, and I think we're going to look at somewhere near Columbus, Ohio. Now that draws out our route across the country. We've got from our starting point to our destination, we've got basically 7 stops built in. Now you can go in and you can select the number of nights that you're going to stay, and it will adjust accordingly on the route. And then you can, at any one of these locations, you hit find a place to stay, and it brings up a little closer map. And on this map, it shows you, in the left-hand column, it shows you a list of the places that it has in its database. And on the right, it shows you a map of the area, and you can click on any one of those campgrounds or any one of those Walmarts, and you can filter in the type of campgrounds that you want. But you can select any one of those on the map or any one of those on the list. We have our reservations already set up at the Hershey Thousand Trails Park, so we're going to select that one. And as we select that location, it's going to bring up basically the amenities at the park. Now we look for big rig access. That is one of the things that we look for first and foremost when we're looking for a park. And so this particular one shows big rig access. Now there are a number of other parks that don't. Now from here I can go straight to the Thousand Trails website or the park's website, any park if they have a website, and it brings up their website. I can take a look and see what their open dates are, where they're located. I try to take a look at the pictures on their site to see what it looks like. It'll give you the amenities that they have at each particular park. So that in itself is kind of nice. And then once we decide that we want to stay there, we click Add to Trip, and then it gives you the options where you want to add it. This is the particular place we want to put it, so we'll select for this stop, and it automatically puts in the list, Hershey, Pennsylvania, Hershey Thousand Trails. And you can modify that if you want to. There are a number of features here that we can make, but that's what we use to do our trip planning. Now we can go through RV Parky and we can put in if we're going to boondock, we can put in our boondock address and it will automatically enter it. There's a place on there that we can select notes, and we can actually copy and paste our emailed reservation confirmation and place it in there. Then that automatically, once you open an RV Parky account, and RV Parky's free, by the way, there is no cost at all. I'm really surprised that it's still free. It's that good of an app, and I'm very surprised that it's still free. But on that app, then it transfers with our account. It transfers over to our phone, and as Kelly said earlier, she uses on her phone as my navigator, and she can bring it up on her phone, and she can click search near me, and it will give all the locations around our current, or all the parks around our current location, and we can select and take a look at them and see if there's big rig access, see if there's options, you know, that a lot of times it'll give reviews on the park and we can read the reviews.
And that's the big thing for me is the reviews.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to say yes, you know, good or bad.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah. So that's how we plan out. Now we use a couple of other things while we're planning. If we're unsure of a park, if the pictures don't quite show it or the website doesn't quite show it, a lot of times we'll bring up Google Earth and we'll actually put in the address and take a look at Google Earth. I even will go to the street view on Google Earth and take a look at my entry points and my exit points and make sure that it looks easy enough to get in and an exit point. You can even go on Google Earth and scroll down and zoom in to specific sites, and you can use the measure distance feature on Google Maps, and it will tell you how long their sites are. As an example, we actually were considering a state park in Oregon on one of our trips, and I could zoom in and take a look and then actually measure the distances to make sure that it was long enough for us to get into, because some state parks are a little smaller. So Google Maps and Google Earth is a real good, helpful feature while we're planning our trip.
And another thing I love about this app is you can share it with your family.
True.
So we share it with our 3 children, we share it with Jim's folks, and they know every day where we're at.
Yeah.
If we're on schedule anyway.
Yeah.
But it tells us the dates we're going to be there, where we're at, everything. So there's no question.
The other thing that we like about RV Parky is you can filter your amenities. If we want to include Walmarts, for instance, we like to boondock at Walmart's if it's just a quick overnighter, or we like to boondock at Cabela's, and you can filter those features in on your search or filter others out. For instance, Cracker Barrel, we're a little too big to stay at most Cracker Barrels, and so we don't have the filter for Cracker Barrels on our RV Parky. But you can filter that in, and then it will tell you as you click on the particular Walmart, for an example, whether or not they allow overnight parking.
Right.
If they don't, then it says overnight parking not allowed. If they do allow it, then it says overnight parking allowed. And of course, we always go in and talk to the management, who's ever on at the time we arrive, and make sure that they're okay with us staying, and if they have a particular place that they want us to pull off into their parking lot.
Right. Now, Harvest Host also you can put in there, right?
I can't put Harvest Host into RV Parky, but Harvest Host is a whole nother app, and we are members of Harvest Host. You can bring up the Harvest Host website, and they actually do have a route planning feature in there, so if you want to go from point A to point B and see what Harvest Hosts are available, you can select that and bring it up on your computer or on your phone, and that will tell you what Harvest Hosts are available along your route as well.
Cool. We hope this helps you and you can find it useful in your travels.
Yep. So that's how we do our trip planning. Most of it's done via RV Parky. We find that the app works extremely well. As I say, it's free. We like free.
Free is a good number.
Yeah. And it really hasn't let us down. And we do try to leave reviews once we stay at a particular park on RV Parky, so that others such as yourselves can see how it works. As you saw early on, we have literally been all across this great country, and we really don't have an issue finding places to stay. We are big, but we're big for a reason. This is our home, and we would rather have our living space than have to or be able to, for instance, pull into Yellowstone National Park. We've been to Yellowstone. We've stayed at the outside RV parks, and then we use the smart car to do our touring and our sightseeing.
Right. And we spent a lot of time in Yellowstone raising the kids. We always went there. We stayed inside the Yellowstone. And we like privacy and quietness. And
Yeah.
that's where you're going to find it, is outside.
Yeah. like I say, we've been clear across the country in this big rig, and we usually don't have any problems finding a place to stay. Now, I will mention one more thing. If we're unsure, after we've gone through RV Parky and we've gone through the reviews and we have looked at Google Earth and we've looked at the Street View, and if we're still unsure, we call the RV park directly and we tell them how big we are, what we've got, and see if they have any issues with us coming in or exiting. And that's the biggest thing for me anyway, as the driver, is I look for not so much as the entry point, I look for my exit point. You know, where am I going to exit? Am I going to have any tight turns having to get through? And you know, we just have, in over 4 years of running this big rig, we've only found one park that didn't want us to come in, and you know, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But we found out beforehand because I had called and said,
We
"This
did.
is how long we are.
Right.
Can we come in?" And they said, "Ooh, no, you're not gonna fit."
Yeah. So anyway, hope this information was useful to you, and we hope that maybe you'll take a look at RV Parky and see if it fits your travel style. As I say, this was a really hard video to make. It's kind of like doing a video on budgeting. Everybody's budget is different. Everybody's
Yes.
travel style is different.
Everybody's sizes are different.
Right. And so this is what we use, and this is how we get around in our big rig.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap this one up, but just remember,
It all starts with an idea.
we'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.